Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today with a Cyberpunk 2077 info blowout. So, we've been covering a lot of Bethesda on the channel lately, and I feel that's mostly due to the fact that there's been a lot of crowded coverage for Cyberpunk 2077 and everyone slinging out their opinions on the demo that they saw behind closed doors that we won't see until August because we were not at E3. And so what I wanted to do was wait a little bit and then round up all of the information that's come out and culminate into one gigantic news video for all of you to consume out there and learn more about Cyberpunk. So let's get it started with one of the biggest surprises at E3, which is that Keanu Reeves is going to be a part of Cyberpunk. But just how big of a part is he going to play? Well, I think much more of a substantial part than anyone expected. So let's take a look at this interview.
So number 2 characters in terms of lines of spoken text. So actually,
across the entire game?
Yeah, wow. Across the entire game. And I think we have something around 15-ish days of voice recording in the studio. So it's huge. It's huge.
Okay.
So you see a lot of Keanu. You'll hear even more of Keanu.
That's a lot of one-liners.
Yeah.
My man has the second most lines in the game, 15 total days of recording. That is insane because it's not just some simple celebrity cameo like we've seen in the Call of Duty campaigns, like Kit Harington or Kevin Spacey. They're actually bringing in someone in a major RPG who's going to be there in a major way. And as we've seen in some Keanu Reeves interviews, he's genuinely passionate about this game, which makes it a lot easier to buy into. It also puts a light on some of the strange but smart marketing that CD Projekt Red is doing. People were hyped about the game in general last year. That was doing the marketing for the title no matter what. It was going to sell a ton because people were extremely positive about it, myself included. And then this year, they revealed the big celebrities a part of this game on top of those already positive impressions. So it's funny how they did it in a reverse way compared to most teams out there, which will do the celebrity first and then more gameplay afterwards. It's just an interesting thought. And once again, kudos to that marketing team because that's a team that's on top of their stuff. But anyway, Keanu Reeves being a major part of this game is really cool for the industry, especially when it's a big role-playing game like this, because it wouldn't surprise me if now after this moment we're going to see a lot of big actors and actresses make their way into games and start to integrate them into our entertainment in a way that makes it much more prevalent for them. It becomes a common thing. It's not just, oh, big name on TV currently, let's get them on our game. This is something much more than that, and I think based off some of Keanu's opinions, that's really solidified, and also just how much CD Projekt Red is using him. The rest of this information comes from PCGamer.com. These are multiple articles that I will have linked in the description down below. The first one is focusing on non-lethal options. During the latest hands-off demo of Cyberpunk 2077 at this year's E3, it was confirmed that you'll be able to finish the entire game without killing anyone. CD Projekt Red tells us that this is a change the team made based on fan feedback and survey cards handed out at E3 last year. Now, fun fact, ladies and gentlemen, when the actual demo concluded last year at E3, what they would do is hand out survey cards and you could write anonymously what you thought about the demo, what could improve. And I actually had wrote that I want to see non-lethal options because the story presented tons of options and I wanted to see that carry into the gameplay a little bit. So it's pretty neat to see that myself and many others actually contributed to something that I think will positively impact the game. So let's continue reading on. Right now, every weapon and every cyberware has a non-lethal option, lead designer Paul Sasko told PC Gamer. Then he revised it a bit. I think I can say everything. There's one thing. Only weapons that are lethal by definition, so let's say you shoot someone with a bazooka in the face, you shoot his head off. That's typically lethal. But everything else actually has a non-lethal option, he said. Pretty much every gun, pretty much every cyberware, you're able to use in a non-lethal way. You're able to knock them down, choke them, make them sleep, and so on. There are ways not to kill them and spare them like the way you could do with the Sasquatch, aka the boss. Furthermore, PC Gamer gives an example of the demo they saw where they said, in this instance, RV knocked the animal out, who is a member of a gang in this abandoned mall, and threw him down a garbage chute, which was described as a passive takedown option, though I worry about the state of the guy's neck after tumbling down a dark metallic shaft from the second story. You can't curb V's aggressive nature entirely, it seems. So I like this idea of weapons having pretty much alternate modes. Now, granted, the bazooka is a fine example. You can maybe turn it into a bunch of micro rockets and have it just stun your opponent, but I think that would break some of the believability that this universe is bringing and just how grounded it is and easy to buy into it is, where stuff like that shouldn't be possible. But I do like the idea that, for example, a pistol can put someone to sleep now. I like the idea that you can choke someone out. I think this is good for replay value because the story clearly offers it, but there's still that moment-to-moment in-between stuff in all of these locations and exploration where you need to be able to play the game a specific way. And I like that they're providing options for that, and a lot of that was built off of fan feedback. It shows that they're listening closely, and hopefully it will amount to something special, but based off impressions where people did see some stealth gameplay, it's working out just fine. You also have numerous hacking abilities at your fingertips, assuming you spec into them, which will make even more stealthy passive approaches possible. Turn off cameras, upload daemons, aka malware, into enemy implants to knock them out from a distance, or hack into environmental objects. Nearly everything is connected to a framework to set up some distractions. Hack a soda machine to make it spit out cans after it can draw the attention of nearby enemies, for instance. So we're seeing actually CD Projekt Red take a little bit of a page from the Watch Dogs handbook, which is something I never expected to say in a sentence this year, but that's the good stuff about Watch Dogs. I love the feeling in Watch Dogs of being able to take out enemies from miles away and sitting there on my phone. There's something really empowering about that, and it's really what carries the series forward. To see stuff along those lines in the terms of hacking abilities and using malware actually make its way into Cyberpunk, which we saw a little bit of in last year's big gameplay reveal that went on for 48 minutes, I think is tremendously exciting because there's just so many ways of approach. Are you a hacker stealth guy? Are you a hacker aggro person where you want to weaken them with the hack and then come in guns blazing? I think there's just a lot of different permutations here based off how you approach speccing your character, and that's super exciting. But now it's time to get into vehicles. We've seen flying cars, cars on the ground, motorcycles, boats. What's going on in Cyberpunk? What can you drive or pilot, and what can't you? Now, let's get into that. This doesn't mean you won't ever find yourself soaring through Night City skyways, but you won't be in control when that happens. There are flying vehicles that are like the story elements, and so there will be moments where V is in the flying vehicle, but they're always story-focused, lead quest designer Pal Sasko told Video Games 24/7. Expect boats too. You won't be in control of them either. They're involved in the story, however, and there will be some water-related sections where V will have to swim. You can swim, but I would not like to disclose anything, said Sasko. We had some quests in The Witcher that were focused around water and doing stuff around the water, and we'll have some here as well. Now, I remember in The Witcher, there were treasure hunts that really took place in the water, involved you swimming around looking for special chests and whatnot, or pieces of armor and weapons. So I always liked that about those games, but also I remember there were some times where you'd have to swim to enter a cave, and since this all takes place in a city, I don't know what that will actually amount to, because I don't think there's going to be random caves you'll explore in Cyberpunk 2077. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But anyway, it's interesting to think maybe they're just fun little mini games perhaps tied to quests. We'll see in due time. But still interesting to know you can swim. You can't drive boats though. You can't fly these cars. Not the biggest deal breaker, I feel, but still with seeing everything happening around you, I think the question of accessibility comes into play where what can I do and what can't I do? So now you know. But that does not mean you cannot call in a car. In the Witcher games, Geralt rides a horse named Roach, who, among other things, is always nearby and comes a-running when Geralt whistles. Thanks to the magic of self-driving cars, which, like everything else, have advanced considerably over the decades, something very similar will be available to V when they need a ride in Cyberpunk 2077. Basically, because those cars are equipped with AI, if you call it, you can see the car driving towards you. You can see when it arrives. Basically, lead quest designer Pal Sasko, who's just an MVP in this video, told Video Games 24/7. You can see as your motorcycle arrives, you can see as your car arrives, you can leave it wherever you want, it can go somewhere, just call it, and the AI makes a bzzz sound, and he drives by and waits for you. In the same interview, Sasko said that players will actually be able to collect vehicles and store them in a parking garage, with one selected as your main that presumably is the one that will pull your ass out of the fire when you can call for help. CD Projekt hasn't decided yet whether you'll be able to own all the cars or if there will be a cap, but Sasko says that it'll be plenty. So it's good to know that the car is always readily available. I think after games like Red Dead Redemption 2, where we'd hitch our horse to a post for immersion and then we'd want to call him in and all of a sudden he's across the map, and that would get really frustrating, especially after a story mission or Breath of the Wild where you have to always be next to your horse. It makes sense in the terms of realism, but it's good to know that in this game I can leave my car wherever I want and call it in whenever I want. It keeps the flow going. I personally prefer it that way if it makes sense, and in terms of self-driving cars and how futuristic the universe is, I'm a-okay with this approach. However, out of all games, I'm being reminded of Sleeping Dogs, one of my favorite open world games of the PS3 and Xbox 360 generation. Seriously, play it if you haven't, but I remember that was a game that was fun to collect cars and build up a garage because there was some really stylish stuff there. But anyway, that pretty much rounds up all of the brand new information for Cyberpunk 2077. So we're going to have non-lethal options. We're seeing a lot of Keanu Reeves, more than I think most expected. We also have the car we can call in, and there's swimming activities to some extent in that we won't be able to fly cars or drive boats, but still those will be contained in the story section. So anyway, a lot to unpack here, a lot to digest. I've talked long enough. I'm excited for everything I mentioned in today's video because this game is like pretty much number one on the 2020 list. It's between that and Final Fantasy VII Remake. I mean, both those games, man, oh my gosh, they're looking fantastic. But I think Cyberpunk just edges it out because it's a more complete game, whereas Final Fantasy VII Remake's just Midgar at this moment in time. So it's not going to be the full experience. But anyway, I am stoked nonetheless. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, so do fire away, ladies and gentlemen. And while you're down there, be sure to follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.